Before you look at your new assessment results, I want you to answer a question. In Module 2, you learned about 3 gap types: authority, context, and expression. Without checking your notes, which gap do you believe has shifted the most since you started this course? Hold that prediction. We're about to find out whether your instinct matches the data. Before you look at your new assessment results, I want you to answer a question. In Module 2, you learned about 3 gap types: authority, context, and expression. Without checking your notes, which gap do you believe has shifted the most since you started this course? Hold that prediction. We're about to find out whether your instinct matches the data. After this video, you're going to retake the ACE assessment right here in the lesson page. The results generate a new gap profile you can compare directly to your Module 3 baseline. I want to frame this clearly. This is not the finish line. It's a checkpoint. The reassessment isn't a test you pass or fail. It's a diagnostic instrument that shows which behaviors have shifted and which perception gaps remain. The difference between those two things, behaviors shifted versus perception shifted, is the most important concept in this entire unit. In Module 1, Video 1.13, you learned that behavioral change happens in weeks, but perception change takes 3 to 6 months. You may have been in this course for days or weeks, not months. If your behavioral scores have shifted, but your perception scores haven't, that is exactly what the timeline predicts. The lag isn't evidence that the work is failing. It's evidence that the work is in progress. Behavioral change precedes perception change. Some gaps will show behavioral improvement without corresponding perception shift, and that's expected, not a failure. When you see your results, here's what to pay attention to. Not the overall score. The pattern of movement across the 3 gap types. Did the gap you predicted match the data? Did a gap you weren't targeting show unexpected movement? That can happen. Expression exercises sometimes produce a spillover effect on authority because increased visibility changes how people perceive your confidence. And did any gap appear to widen? A widening gap typically means you became more aware of a gap that was previously invisible to you. Not that things got worse, that you can see more clearly now. I see these patterns consistently across every leader I work with. Expression scores tend to improve fastest because the exercises, decision narration, the checking in protocol from Module 4 produce immediate behavioral change that others can observe. People can see you doing something different right away. Authority scores shift more slowly because the identity renegotiation takes time. The audience needs repeated exposure to the new pattern before they update their mental model of who you are. You're not just changing a behavior, you're changing what people expect from you. That's a longer arc. Context scores may not move at all if the organizational environment hasn't changed. You may be doing everything right in a system that hasn't yet recalibrated its perception of you. Nothing went wrong there. Everything is on schedule. A director of operations predicted her expression gap had shifted most. She practiced decision narration in the checking-in protocol throughout the course. Her expression gap narrowed by 15 points. Her authority gap, which she hadn't targeted, narrowed by 4, a spillover effect. Context stayed flat. She was doing different things in the same organizational context. The behavior changed. The system's perception was still catching up. Compare that with a VP of sales who predicted his authority gap shifted. It had modestly, but his expression gap widened by 6 points. Not regression. Through the authority exercises, he became more aware of how much internal processing he wasn't displaying. The gap didn't get bigger, his awareness of it did. Before you take the assessment, write down your prediction, which gap shifted most, and by how much. When you get your results, compare them. The distance between prediction and reality is itself useful data. Go ahead and take the assessment now. When you have your result, come back for the next video where we'll look at what your numbers actually mean, the behavioral milestones that drive the perception shifts you're targeting,